dignitaries, but state champions as well. So welcome to not only Mr. Slocum, but the Cheshire High School hockey team, the reigning state champions. With that, we'll call the meeting to order, the special meeting of Tuesday, April 16th. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Peter Talbot.
Here.
Jim Jinks. Here. Dina Allard.
Here.
Patricia Kramer. Here. Fiona Pearson.
Here.
Don Walsh.
Here.
Greg Wolf. Here. David Velaber.
Here.
And John Milone. Everyone's present.
Thank you. Please join me in the pledge. And with that, tonight we will be starting off with two public hearings before we get into our normal meeting agenda. Madam Clerk, would you do the explanation or do the reading of the legal notice for the first public hearing, please?
Okay. The Town Council of the Town of Cheshire will hold a public hearing at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, April 16th, 2024 in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 84 South Main Street, Cheshire, Connecticut, to consider an ordinance amendment to Section 14-1 F2 excavations. Electors and citizens will be heard at the public hearing concerning this proposed ordinance dated at Cheshire, Connecticut, this 27th day of March 2024.
And Mr. Kimball, would you do the presentation on this subject, please?
Sure, I will be very brief. This, as recommended by the ordinance committee, simply makes a change in the amount of the performance bond for any street excavations in town streets or highways from formerly $3,000 to now $10,000. So that's the change.
Thank you, Mr. Kimball. If anybody would like to speak on the public hearing, please do so now at the microphone to our right. Going once, going twice. Close this public hearing. Madam Clerk, would you read the legal notice for the second public hearing?
The Town Council of the Town of Cheshire will hold a public hearing at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, April 16th, 2024, in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 84 South Main Street, Cheshire, Connecticut, to consider an ordinance amendment to Section 13-32L, Regulation of Peddlers and Solicitors. Electors and citizens will be heard at the public hearing concerning this proposed ordinance, dated at Cheshire, Connecticut, this 27th day of March 2024.
And Mr. Kimball, back to you.
All right, similarly brief, this ordinance amendment changes the hours that it is prohibited to be for solicitation, which was formerly 7 p.m. to 9 a.m. year-round. This now would be 7 p.m. to 9 a.m. from April 1st to October 31st, but from November 1st through March 31st, the prohibition would be from 5 p.m. to 9 a.m. as opposed to 7 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kimball. Anyone that would like to speak on this public hearing, please do so at the podium to our right, your left. Going once, going twice. We will close this public hearing. Thank you. Which brings us into our regular meeting, the special meeting now, because of the move from April 9th to April 16th. We have done the roll and the pledge, which brings us to public communications. To my colleagues, we have our quarterly consent calendar donations in front of you for your perusal. And with that, we get into the fun stuff. Mr. Slocum, if you wouldn't mind going to the podium, please.
Hi, Tim.
This where I should be, behind the deck?
That's perfect. Is there a microphone there, or?
Probably there's a lot of white cord.
Okay, there you go.
Little housekeeping's in order,
Just exactly.
just like home.
So I have here a certificate of recognition for Tim Slocum. Whereas for nearly all his life, Tim Slocum has been an active and dedicated member in this community. Whereas Mr. Slocum served on the town council from 2009 to 2024, a total of nearly 15 years, following years serving on the Planning and Zoning Commission. And whereas he served twice as the council chair, working with his fellow councilors to ensure the highest quality of town operations and financial standing. And whereas throughout his tenure, he dedicated countless hours and went above and beyond in his role as a town councilor. Therefore, I, Peter J. Talbot, Mayor and Chair of the Town Council, on behalf of the Town Council and all of the citizens of Cheshire, by this certificate of recognition, gratefully acknowledge the significant positive impact Tim Slocum has had as a town councilor and leader for the town of Cheshire. Dated at Cheshire, Connecticut, this 16th day of April, 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this live or not live? Or how do we enliven it? Okay. I thank you, all of you. I know in the role we serve as elected officials, most of us enjoy it a lot. It has its ups and downs, but generally, we love the service, and I'm no different. I had two things in life that I truly loved, my wife and family and the town of Cheshire, and that's very sincere. I did it as a kid in high school. I raised my family here. I lived in the same school district. I never punched a time clock in any other town but Cheshire. Ultimately had my own business here. I'm a real homie. And that's not something you can count on, just the way the apple fell from the tree, I guess, and I couldn't be happier. One thing I never understood when people asked, why they moved to Cheshire, they would say, well, we came for the schools. Well, I went to Cheshire schools, so I had grateful appreciation for those schools, but no doubt, my parents came here. I was stuck with the schools I went through, but they were great schools. So for me, I truly enjoyed my service to the town. I got a lot out of it in terms of meeting wonderful people, many of them elected. My friend Woody Dawson, I met him campaigning 20 years ago. And some kind of say that's an Ike and Mike couple, but we got a lasting friendship out of campaigning. E.J. Kurtz, another person I campaigned with. Sadly, we have to remember E.J. in our prayers with his father's passing. But you make these connections, and then of course you make connections with the people in town. And I enjoyed that very much. I'll continue to be connected in ways that are positive for the town and positive for me personally. But I do enjoy, sitting in the lounge and watching your meetings occasionally, including the tough one last night. Almost 3 hours of budget meeting, I think it was. Pretty long meeting. And it's pretty dry stuff. And I felt for the new people. So here's my advice to the new people, because you are new and you're not that smart. And that's not a knock. Just listen to the other five, not in what you decide to spend the money on, but they have experience. They've heard the manager. They've heard the Board of Ed guy, Jeff Solon. They've heard all of these people over the years, and the nuance and all of that stuff that matters so that we do our best for the taxpayer is valuable. It's invaluable experience. So lean on your colleagues so you become better and think about we taxpayers, and I know you will. I know you will. And I hope you get along, too. I think that's always important. I know I tried to get along. After all, Peter and I live on the same street. We've had 2 mayors on Lilac Court for a long time. And it's a dead end. Cul-de-sac. But anyway, I've taken enough of your time, and I do appreciate the recognition, and I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much.
I'm going to open it up to my colleagues for some comments, and then I obviously have some things that I'd like to say as we wrap it up tonight. So, Mr. Walsh, please.
Thank you, Peter. And thank you, Tim, for all you have done for this community. I knew of you long before I ever decided to run for office here, and I respected the time commitment you gave to this community. I don't think people realize how much time we all put into this volunteer position, and for doing it for 15 years, plus the years you did it on planning and zoning, is remarkable. Maybe that made for a better marriage with you and your wife, because I know my wife is always asking me, how long is this meeting going to be? And I said, I'll see you tomorrow. But that's just because you had a love for this community, and you still do, and as we all do as well. You've been a mentor, you've become a good friend, and a sounding board for me, which I appreciate all of your advice that you have given me. And it's a little different without you up here, but I know you're only a phone call away, but I appreciate what you have done for this community, and I know many other people appreciate what you have done as well. So thank you, and good luck in your retirement, however long that may be.
Mr. Malone.
Well, Tim, I've known you for a long time as well, but not so much being up here politically with you, but in other ways in the community, and I have tremendous respect for what you've done for the town of Cheshire and the kind of person you are as well. And you've been a tremendous mentor for me on the political side. And I'm here because of you twice. Once because you mentored me to come on board, and the second because you gave me another opportunity to come here. So I owe you a lot, Tim, so thank you very much. And thanks for your service.
Mr. Veliver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tim, we've known each other a long time, both at church and also through town, and I really appreciate all that you've done for the town, but also for me as well. It's been a pleasure having these decades to get to know you. We were hoping for the Lutheran Church caucus for this session, but didn't work out. But maybe in the future, we'll see what happens. But I wanted to just thank you for all that you've done for the town, as well as for me, both through planning and zoning, as well as here on the council. You've been a tremendous mentor to me, as well as to other people who've come through this council as well. So thank you very much for your service to the town and your friendship. So thank you.
Mr. Jenks.
Thank you. Hey, Tim. So I was one of the new guys just not too long ago when you had been here after quite some time, couple of decades, I guess. So I had the great fortune of being able to learn from you and from the other members, of course. But I always knew that you were coming from a place of love for the community and really wanted to do best by the community. Of course, I didn't always agree with everything that you had to say, of course. That's just how it goes. But always appreciated your point of view and knowing where it was coming from. And as I said, I learned a great deal from just being up here with you. And it's a tremendous record of service that you have to this community. And I'm sure it's something that you'll be proud of for the rest of your life. And continue to pay dividends. So thank you very much, and I'll see you around.
Ms. Allard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Slocum, thank you so much for your service to our community. I am a transplant, so you and I are not homies. I'm a transplant to this community, and I am new to this council. I've never claimed to be smart, but I am certainly wise. And I'm wise enough to realize that your contributions to this community are certainly one of the reasons I was attracted to move here in the first place. So thank you very much for your efforts and your time. You made it look easy. It's not easy. So thank you.
Ms. Pearson?
So you're no longer my seating buddy. I now have Dawn next door to me. But no, thank you for your service, and thank you for your long advocacy of our open spaces. I know that you have done a great deal in our community, and that's something I value dearly, and hoping to continue to learn from you on that particular front. Okay, thank you.
Which leaves me. So I think it's very safe to say that you and I have known each other longer than any two people in this room. We grew up in the same neighborhood. We went to Norton School together. We went to Dodd together. We graduated Cheshire High School together. So, and the similarity that we had from high school, and very few people know this, but we both played a major role in the Cheshire High School Class of '74 play that was held, How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. Now, some would argue that your role as the male lead of J. Pierpont Finch trumps my role of operating the main curtain for the play, but still, nonetheless, they were both very important functions that we served. Like I said, Tim, you know, we've known each other for a long time. You mentioned that we're neighbors, and I feel like we've always been neighbors. The one nice thing and the one thing I always appreciated was that no matter how we went toe-to-toe the night before, the next morning when I was walking the dog and you were heading off to work, there was always a friendly wave and a smile, and you know, we come at this from the same place. You talked about the apple, you know, the apple falling from the tree. I would argue that maybe our apples fell from the same tree because we really had our roots in this community. You know, our parents raised us in this community. We went to the school system together, and we both got into volunteer service for this community. Your record is absolutely amazing when I look at it, and I can't thank you enough on behalf of this community for what you've done and the time you've put in and the service that you've given and the sacrifices that you've personally made to be able to do that for this community. So, and with that, I would like to present you with this proclamation in the front here, and then we have a little parting gift for you. Not a parting shot. Anywhere right here is good. This is, I'm going to give you that. Which is nice. Exactly. But we also have this that we'd like to have you take home with you as well. Wow. You may have seen one similar to this.
Yeah, this is the deck chair for the Titanic.
Yeah.
Wow, this is nice. I will officially have my place in the house now. That's the mother. It really is. We've got one heck of a town.
Yeah. Thank you. I really wanted to do that first because I thought it was important for the members of our next recognition to see what that community service looks like in the time and the dedication of some of the individuals we have in this community. For those of you that do stick around, I hope that you find your way to do some volunteer work in this community as well. And with that, I have a certificate of recognition for the Cheshire High School hockey team. Whereas this year marks the commemoration of the 50th season for the Cheshire High School boys ice hockey team, and whereas during these 50 seasons, the team has won 5 state championships, 1977 to 78, 2005 to 2006, 2008 to 2009, 2010 to 2011, and now 2023 to 2024. And whereas the Cheshire hockey team is the only high school in the state to win a state title at all 3 division levels, now therefore I, Peter J. Talbot, Mayor and Chair of the Town Council, on behalf of the Town Council and all the citizens of Cheshire, express our pride in the Cheshire High School boys ice hockey team, and by this certificate do hereby recognize the team and coaches for their dedication and outstanding teamwork. We congratulate them on their 50th season and their 2024 state championship victory, and we wish these fine young athletes much continued success. Dated at Cheshire, Connecticut, the 16th day of April, 2024. If I could have the coach and the captains come up to the podium. So I know it's not going to be a surprise that that Mr. Wolf was at the state championship game, but Ms. Kramer and I were also at that game, and it was great till about 6 minutes to go in the third quarter, when you guys made it much too interesting for our liking. We liked the 4-0 number so much better, but you turned things around very quickly. It was an exciting game. You guys are an exciting team. You obviously work hard, and with that, we'd love to hear from your coach.
Well, thank you very much for the acknowledgement. Thank you for recognizing the 50th season to start and then to cap it off with a state championship. It's really been a magical run this year, and it's the word that we've used kind of all season long, is this magical run from honoring our 50 years of hockey and the teams that came before us and the state championships and all the players and building that bond to the group that was on the ice before us to now this group, and to finish it off with a state championship. And as you said, you know, to win it in a dramatic fashion just was kind of the icing on the cake. And we talk about community a lot, and I heard that word a lot here tonight. The Cheshire community has been absolutely amazing in their support for us toward the end of the season, throughout our state tournament, and since the championship win. I cannot thank the town council enough for this acknowledgement, but it goes beyond that. It goes to the businesses in town who have, you know, given us free meals and offered sweatshirts to the kids, to people on Facebook just giving their congratulations and good luck along the way. So the town of Cheshire truly is a special, special community, and it's something that we all should be very proud of, and thank you all for your service. So thank you.
I want to thank Mr. Wolf for organizing this. He was the one that put this together, and the way it worked out, we were supposed to have you at January was the first one, and
Snowed out
so
twice.
yeah, I was going to say it got
Worked
pushed
out
off,
perfect this way.
but it got pushed off for a reason. We were just waiting for the icing on the cake. So. What I'd like to do is have all the team and the coach join me for a quick picture, and then I would ask the team to go through and take the congratulations of the council. Yes. Yep.
Good, how are you, Rich? It's yeah, you could say that again.
If you guys would hang just for another couple minutes, I want to, you can go ahead and get to your seats, but I wanted to give my colleagues the opportunity to say a couple words as well, so. I forgot that. Ms. Kramer, did you want to lead us off?
Sure, I just wanted to congratulate you guys. It was an amazing game to watch. The last hockey game I attended was the Rangers, probably in the 90s, so it was equally as exciting, I promise. I also wanted to acknowledge the amount of time, life effort, dedication, blood, sweat, and tears I know you guys have put into those skates. Ice hockey has got to be one of the more difficult skill sports, and you guys just owned it this year, and I'm really proud. Both of my sons play sports here, track, wrestling, football, volleyball, and we're Ram proud, and you guys are why. So I appreciate the vigor that you brought to the town's spirit, taking home that title. It's an amazing feeling. And hug your parents when you get home, because we bring you guys to a lot of practices. We make sure you eat right. We make sure you have the proper equipment, and you guys do the rest. And the dedication that you showed over the past seasons, however many you've played, because I know this isn't a sport you just pick up freshman year. I know this is something you guys have been dedicating your lives to probably since you could walk. Skating's that difficult. I just want to say thank you for your commitment to the town and to your team. To the coaches and any parents that are here, thank you for the dedication and showing these kids that if they put their minds to it, success is found. Thank you so much, you guys, and enjoy every second of the success.
Mr. Wolf?
I had a big speech set for you guys in January to get you all pumped up. That was for naught. Congratulations. I just want to say that, this has been a huge part of our family's life, and everyone in that back. I know how much it's meant to all of you all too. And I just want to say good luck to the next captains. You have big shoes to fill, boys. Just keep it up, and thank you for the good games, and hope to see some games next year. So congratulations again.
Mr. Walsh?
Thank you. I thought they were all here to petition for an ice rink, but got me all nervous. Maybe next year. I want to
Don't give the parents any
I know,
ideas, Don.
I know. I want to congratulate you as well. This was a good year for me because my alma mater, Notre Dame of West Haven, also won the state championship in hockey, basketball too, but we'll talk about hockey. I know the dedication it takes, not only for the players, but like Trish said, for the parents. And yes, go home and hug your parents and thank your parents for the time commitment that they had to put in to get you to your practices, to get you to your games, and to get you the equipment. I know hockey is not an easy sport for the parents, especially at early morning practices, late in evening practices, and equipment. But you know, the dedication that the players showed on the ice and the parents showed to their children paid off, and I congratulate you. I congratulate your coach for doing such a great job with you. And I'm just wondering how the basketball coach let some of you guys get away. But don't let him know how tall you are. Just walk a little lower when you're walking by him. So thank you.
And with that, thank you again. Congratulations, and thanks for being patient and waiting to be here for this night. But like I said at the start, it certainly was meant to be that you guys came here not only as the 50th anniversary team, but also as state champions. So congratulations again, Coach. Thank you, parents. Thank you very much. The fun stuff is over. Now it's down to business.
I don't know what they're missing.
Item number 4 is the approval of minutes, and we had a few meetings. The minutes of the March 12th Town Council regular meeting, the March 19th Town Council special meeting, March 21st Town Council special meeting, March 23rd Town Council special meeting, March 26th Town Council special meeting, and the April 4th Town Council special meeting. I'll accept a motion. And a second? Second. Thank you. All in favor? The vote is unanimous.
Someone was busy.
Brings us to the consent calendar. Mr. Jinks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves resolution number 041624-1. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves the consent calendar for April 16th, 2024 as follows.
Do I have a second?
Yep.
Mr. Walsh, all those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Brings us to no items removed from consent calendar. Brings us to number 7, old business, and we'll start with Bartlett South. Update, Mr. Kimball.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will actually direct your attention to the town manager's report, page 3, if you'd like a nice show and tell. We have reached a great milestone with respect to Bartlett Park South. On Friday, we did a final walkthrough. Town attorney was there, number of town staff, also our insurance broker consultant was there to verify that we could accept, as we've been planning for the last number of months, to accept the turf field portion of the project into town ownership, moving the construction fencing away from, I guess that would be the east and the north side, down to the south and the west side, so that that portion of the project is turned over to the town. Again, the lights aren't going to be working until Eversource does all the hookups once the bathroom building is built and functional, but this does allow, starting tomorrow, some limited use of the turf field. There are still a few punch list items that the Sprint Turf will be coming back to touch up, but it passed all of the requisite testing, concussion testing, and all of the other important components. It's functioning very well. We've had a lot of good testing of the drainage, certainly with all the raining that we've been experiencing over the last few months, and it's been really performing excellently. So rather than waste a full season with a built field that doesn't get any use, we're going to be able to use that again starting tomorrow. There'll be a brief, no real ceremony, but sort of a very soft opening. Some photos tomorrow at 3 o'clock if anyone's available before the very first team from Cheshire High School. I saw John Persino here earlier. He'll be over there at 3 o'clock tomorrow for lacrosse practice, and anyone who would like to come, feel free to stop by and see it being used for the first time. So it's very exciting. So that's the big to-do. Otherwise, you've seen a lot of work progressing. The path around the Town Green Picnic Grove area was done just a couple days ago. And you'll see all of the various irrigation has been installed, electrical conduit, everything else being done as they're working now towards the Great Lawn and the band shell area. And yeah, things are going very, very well. And so I guess that really concludes the report. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from council members? Before we get to Mr. Gussenberg, I inadvertently skipped public comment. If anybody wanted to, I'm seeing mostly staff, so if anybody did want to speak, now is your time to do so. Seeing none, we will move on. Mr. Gussenberg with an update for the school building committee.
1 second to get the TV up and running. Sure. Is this the right one?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I'm on the black plug.
No, it's this. You have HDMI.
So, all right, so you don't want me on this one.
No, you have HDMI. Yes, yes.
Yeah, I've used this computer on here before. It's all a matter of which dongle you want. There's that one, and there's this one. I think this is the one you want.
Oh, yeah, that's the one. There it is. Is that,
That's why I carry multiples.
does that go into your, you got a port for that?
Yep. Not find it? We've used it before.
Just says detect. There it is. There we go.
Okay. Very
Do you
good.
have it as a, I'm gonna do full screen? Perfect.
All right, there we go. Sorry, took me a second. Okay, we have been moving along very well, and I'm going to give you a quick update on some things that are happening and some exciting things that are happening. First of all, as you know, we finished our design development. That's the second stage of planning. We're into construction documents right now. We've gotten approvals from all the various groups that we need from the town. We still have approvals up at the state level, but we're moving right on schedule. And I'll talk to you a little bit about what's upcoming. What I wanted to do is show you, last time I gave you some pictures of what the North End School would look like. We now have also some drawings and pictures of Norton, and I wanted to share some of that with you. As you know, when we first started, there were community groups, staff groups, student groups that worked with the architects, and there were two themes that were developed. For the North End, Farm and Field; for Norton School, Woods and Trails. So as we've been working with the architects, we've been focusing on that Woods and Trails, and I want you to see how that's beginning to come about. First of all, this is the exterior of the building, and I'm showing it to you here because you've seen it before, but I also wanted to point out some of the materials that are being used, which keeps it looking like a Cheshire building that will, I think, fit in with the community very, very well. Interiors, the building itself off to the bottom left shows where the cafeteria, the auditorium, the library, all of those things are. And you'll see that center hallway running up. The areas that come off from that are the classroom wings, and there's 2 floors of that. And I'm going to show you a little bit about what that looks like. So you're in your main hallway right now, and keep in mind that theme that we had, because some of the columns that are there are turned into trees. If in this particular picture you're walking down the main hallway, the library or media center is to your right, the office is to the left, and you can see the door open into the gymnasium a little farther up. If you go upstairs, you see the same kind of thing where you can look all the way through out the back, which is a wooded area. Again, here you're looking at windows that overlook the media center on the right and windows that overlook the gymnasium on the left. Here we are in the media center, and again, you see that theme that is brought through in the color and the wood. I think they've done a really nice job of making this a very warm facility. The gymnasium and the cafeteria. So just to give you a little bit of a sense of what the interior of some of those main portions of the building look like. But they decided they wanted to go beyond that too, and as you go out into the classroom wings, which we showed, those also will have lots of graphics that go along with certain themes. So for instance, as you go down this right-hand corridor where the kindergartens are, that is our bunny burrow. And there will be graphics on the doors, the windows, some of the classrooms that go along with that. So our bunnies will be living in the bunny burrow for a year at kindergarten. When they get to 1st and 2nd grade, that's the songbird meadow. When they go up to 3rd and 4th grade, it's the fox hollow. And when they get to 5th and 6th grade, it's the nighthawk nest. So you'll see those themes carried through in some of the graphics and things that will be done within each of the hallways. So that's just a little look at the Norton design, and those are now being developed into actual construction documents. And that's just another view of the outside of the building. I personally am really excited. I think it's going to be a beautiful addition to the area. A little bit in terms of where we are right now, we had a very productive joint meeting with the Board of Education this past Thursday. And the focus of that, although we went in a wide-ranging discussion of various questions that board members had to make sure that they had a full understanding of all that's going on. But the main focus of that meeting was to approve some summer work that's going to be done. The actual start of construction is December of this year. But in conversation with the architects and the builders, it was decided, you know, we can get in and we can start doing some things now, which will lead us to be able to really hit the ground running come December. So Norton School, not a huge amount of work, but they're going to be bringing in the road from Sharon Drive. There is a right-of-way presently that runs from Sharon Drive to the rear of the property. That's going to be used by the construction crews throughout. And while The new building, when it first is finished and we're taking down the old building, the staff will be using that. In the end, that will be closed off and become an emergency access only. So that'll be part of what's being done there. That requires, obviously, clearing some areas, and they'll be building a three-sided culvert that goes over some of the waterway that's there. The blue section that's just above, the black that's there is the present building. The blue section that's just above that is an emergency access road. When we put in the fencing for the new building, it would block off some of the emergency access. So the fire department has asked us to make sure that we have that. So we'll be putting that emergency access road in. And then because we'll be fencing off large areas and the students will lose a fair amount of their playground area, what we're going to do is take part of the property that the town council purchased, that section where the garage is now. We're not going as far as where the old house is, but that section where the garage is, we'll be bringing the fencing down and around. We'll be taking some of the playground equipment that's in the back and moving that into the front, and that's shown by the green area that is at the bottom here. So that's all the work that's going on at Norton. It won't be something where you'll be driving by saying, oh my God, look what's going on. That'll have to take place in December. Over at the north end, you're going to see much more. The area where the building is going to be built needs to be built up and certain kinds of soils brought in there. So you're going to be seeing some driveways brought in from both Jarvis and Marion, and you're going to see bulldozers moving soil and bringing it down to where this, what they call settlement platforms, putting the proper amount of soil in, settling that soil and getting it ready for construction come December. To do that this summer, and then they can be monitored to make sure that the soil is compacted properly and ready to go. So that's the summer work that's going to happen there. So you're going to see much more happening come summertime in the north end. Little bit on energy. I know the town council in the past has expressed a great deal of interest in the energy at the school. We did get some information recently. As you know, energy is measured in what's called EUIs, energy use intensity, which is all of the various energy uses divided by the square footage of the building. I found this graph, which essentially says, you know, your average school out there, the EUI is about 48. Other facilities that are educational facilities might go as high as 84. I looked at some other schools that were in the area, and most of them were 50, 60, 70 EUI. Ready for the big reveal. The projections right now are that the North End EUI is going to be 20.5, that the Norton School EUI is about 21. Those are extremely efficient numbers. As far as I know, there's only about 4 net zero buildings in the state, and they tend to run anywhere from 17.5 to 19. So we're very, very close to those numbers, even with the hybrid system that we ended up with. So that's my report, and I am open to any questions or comments you might have.
Mr. Walsh.
Thank you. Again, thank you for everything you and your committee are doing. Quick question. I know you were talking about the North End School. The house on that property, is that slated to be taken down?
That house is going to be used by the construction people as their headquarters during construction. Then it'll be taken down towards the end of the construction process.
Okay. And the other thing, Norton, are a lot of trees have to come down? Is that?
Well, this summer, not a huge number. I mean, there's just enough to make that road coming from Sharon Drive to the building.
So the majority of that in December?
But come December, yeah, there will be, if I might, there we go. This area right in here is a fair amount of wooded area right now. That's going to become parking for the construction crew while construction is going on. When we finish the building and the present Norton moves in, there's going to be a couple of months where we're taking down the old Norton and doing parking and everything here. This will become parking for the staff. When that is all done and the staff can move here, then this will become ball fields. So that whole area is going to be grassed when we're finished. But yes, there's going to be a number of trees taken down in that area.
Thank you for your comprehensive report, as
You're
always,
welcome.
Rich. I know Rich Augurick went with you to Buckley High School. I don't know if
Yes.
you could just talk a little bit about what you learned there, what you saw there.
Yeah, it was an interesting workshop, just Rich and I from Cheshire. This was a workshop presented by a number of people who had worked on Buckley School up in Manchester, which is a renovated net zero building. It's a much smaller building than what we're doing, and going into an older building. This building was built, I think, in the early 50s. And it's a core of like a gym, cafeteria, whatever, and then a straight classroom wing that goes out from it. But we were able to see, you know, the geothermal system that was there. We talked a little bit about the process that they went through in creating the net zero system. And in fact, if I might, this is actually one of their graphics that I have here. Because what they essentially talk about is they started also, just as we did, with that EUI and trying to get it down as much as they could by good insulation, by making sure the roof was well done, and you know the windows were the best they could make, by making it as tight as they could. For us, that's built into the fact that we're doing a brand new building. They've done 3 renovations in Manchester, and then the only other net building that I'm aware of, net zero building that's brand new, is Mansfield, has just finished one. I haven't seen that. But the difference between what we've done with the EUI and getting to net zero is the renewables. And that is things like solar panels, things like that. And you know, one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is they think of net zero as we never need to take any energy from the grid. And again, this is one of their graphics. But what they show is that during the winter time, they are running in the red. They're pulling lots of energy off of the grid. But during the summertime, they're creating more energy. So when you look at it over the course of a year, it's net zero. Now, you know, you can make a net zero building if you close it for 2 months in the winter, 2 months in the summer, and don't have to heat or don't have to air condition. So, I mean, there's things that you do to create net zero. I don't know how much air conditioning they did in the summer or whatever, but they were able to create the net zero building in that way by making sure that their solar panels were effective enough that it compensated for the amount of energy that they used during the winter time. I found this other slide a little bit interesting. Oops, if I'm going the wrong way here. I found this slide a little interesting. When I grabbed it, they talked about source EUI versus site EUI. Source EUI says, what is the total energy that it takes to run your building? Not just what we're doing internally, but what about when you got to go dig up that coal and bring it and process it, or you got to pump that oil and run it through a refinery and then bring it in? So, you know, you could have a net zero building, but it's a building that if they're pulling stuff off the grid and the grid is a coal-fired plant, that you're still, you know, using a fair amount of energy. So there's I'm finding, and this is not my area of expertise, but I'm finding that, you know, it's a much more complex piece than what I had anticipated. These are the schools that we were talking about before. Buckley had an EUI of 17.3. Bowers, which was also in Manchester, a renovation, 18.2. Keeney, which is a renovation, 19. And then the new Mansfield Elementary, 17.3.
Thank you for sharing all of that.
You're
That's
welcome.
It's a learning process for all
I
of
had
us.
that just in case you happened to ask. I thought that might come from you.
I know when I go back to the Energy Commission, they'll be asking. So, no, thank you.
Mr. Wolf?
Thank you, Rich. I just have one comment about, now that we're getting close to actually digging in the ground and construction trucks and all that, the sensitivity to the neighbors. I know that Sharon Drive, we're going to be bringing construction vehicles through residential neighborhoods, and I just want you to speak to how we are dealing with that, whether it's going to be certain hours of the day, and what recourse the neighbors have if there are problems, who they contact. I'm very concerned about how we impact that for the next year plus until we get to
an excellent question.
until
yeah.
we get to the point where there's actual, activity at the schools. There's going to be a lot of really loud, annoying things going on in those areas.
Yeah. Well, mark on your calendar, April 30th at 6 o'clock at Norton School. We've sent out a letter to everyone who lives within a mile of Norton and a mile of the North End School, inviting them to a presentation and discussion of just that question. Here's the work that's going to go on this summer, and here's what you can expect. When we talked to planning and zoning, this was obviously a topic of conversation. The builders, O&G at that time, made it very clear that they are very sensitive to that they would only work within certain hours, that they would be very aware of noise and making sure that there's the proper riprap and cleaning equipment so that as trucks are going in and out, the roads aren't dirty. We have asked O&G when construction starts to put a sign on the entranceway, and in case of Norton, it would be at Sharon Drive and North Brooksvale, with the name of a contact person, so that if there's a concern or a question, then they have somebody specific to call, short of calling the mayor or whatever. So I think we're trying to be very, very sensitive to it. We had several meetings last fall. We did talk to a number of neighbors at that time who were concerned about things like light infiltration, and we showed them that there's very specific light studies that have been done that shows that there will be no light infiltration. Some of the sound things, some of the plantings that we're doing, things like that. But we know that you're going to have heavy equipment working, particularly for Norton area, in an area that's surrounded by homes. So, we're going to do the best we can. But, there obviously will be, some noise, some dust, things like that. But we're working to try to mitigate that as best we can.
Ms. Allard?
Rich, thank you so much for the time you take to explain this to us as well as the community. I really appreciate this. It's clearly a huge undertaking, so I really do appreciate it. You mentioned on one of the properties, a section of it is going to be ball fields. I know that there is a high demand for diamond sports and a shortage in town, so can you speak a little bit about what we can expect on the grounds around both properties?
Yeah, I don't have the graphics here. I could bring those next time if you'd like. There are, at both sites, 2 large green grass ball fields. They're not designated as anything in particular, at least not at this point. They're not, specifically soccer fields or baseball fields or anything like that. So when you drive up, let's see if I can, these aren't the best graphics for this, but let's see. Yeah, it's not going to be very good at all, but anyway, this is the building. This whole area here is one field, and then over here is a second field. And that's for the North End School. And for Norton, there is the field that I showed you before, and then this field on the side. So there's 2 fields that'll be used for playground, PE, things like that, but it'll also be available for the community. I don't think that it'll be as much as some people had hoped. I know we have been approached by various groups in town, and we're somewhat limited. I mean, they would love to see, huge soccer fields and things like that. We're limited in a couple of ways. One is, in order to get reimbursement from the state, we have to work within certain parameters. They have to look and say, this is appropriate for a K through 6 elementary school. But also because of the topography, for instance, at the north site, the topography limits us somewhat. If we were to expand that field that's up near Marion Road, you would need to have some very, very large retaining walls and things like that. So we've tried to maximize as best we can, and I think that'll be a conversation as we get a little farther down the line, exactly how those fields get set up and used.
Thank you.
Mr. Veliber.
Rich, thank you very much. I know your presentations every month are very helpful and we're very appreciative of the dedication you're putting into this and the information you're feeding back to us. So we appreciate this as it's going forward. Just wanted to, just to clarify, you talked about this meeting on April 30th. Could you give, what time is that on? And is it only for Norton School or is it both?
No, it's, we decided to do one meeting for everybody.
Okay.
We don't know how many people will come to the North End meeting because there aren't a lot of people right in the direct area. So when we talked about it, we said, let's do a single meeting where we can go through the process. We've sent out a letter to everyone who lives within 1 mile of Norton and everyone who lives within 1 mile of the North End School. And the superintendent was surprised when he found out how many people that turned out to be. Originally, we were just going to, the people who lived right around Norton or whatever. So I don't know how many letters went out, but it was substantial. It's at 6 o'clock at Norton School on April 30th, and it's open to anyone in the community, but we very specifically sent invitations out to those people that would be most directly involved.
Great, thank you.
As South Enders, both Ms. Kramer and myself received that letter, so we were part of that 1 mile radius. Since you have that slide up, you talked about the trees that were going to be taken down to the right-hand side of the screen, is that correct?
Yes.
And so there is still going to be a fairly significant tree buffer, with the exception of the access road or the construction road, but there's still going to be a pretty significant tree buffer between the Norton property and Sharon Drive residents.
And also, I forget what road this is over here.
That's, well, you got Dryden and Ott over there.
Yeah. So,
But there's,
yeah,
there's
if
plenty
you-
of,
if
there's
you know the
plenty of
site-
room on the right side.
If you know the site right now where the school is and there's a field in the back that essentially comes and squares this off, and
Yeah.
this whole area is wooded right now.
Okay.
It's a fairly large section. So, I mean, the school is going to be jumping into a part of that. But yes, there will be a tree buffer all the way around the building. We're not taking that down. Actually, there's not much of anything on the left-hand side now. It's pretty tight. If you drive along here, you can see the school right behind people's houses. There will actually be more of a tree buffer here than the present school has on that side.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're right. I never thought about it that way. Because the position of the school now, if you're on Farmington Drive, there are houses where literally Norton School is your backyard.
Yes,
so.
yeah, you see right through. In fact, this time of year, I took a ride there the other day. The trees haven't bloomed yet,
Yeah.
and you can see the school right there. And the
Leaves
portable
and-
classroom that sits off to the side here is almost right up against the line. But remember, you know, even now, you've got a little walkway that comes through right here.
Yep.
You know, and for people who, my kids went to Highland, and my sister-in-law lived right behind Highland School. This is an elementary school. You know, it's not like living near a high school where you may have, you know, football games and band practices and all that sort of thing. You know, you're going to have some groups using the fields and things like that, but elementary schools are fairly tame facilities to have near your home. And in fact, you know, quite convenient that you can zip over and your kids can play ball, or, you know, I was over at Norton the other day and there was a little girl about 4 years old learning to ride a bicycle. And, you know, I mean, that's the great thing about an elementary school. So, yeah.
And then finally, Rich, if you could go to, there was an area, one of your first slides was an aerial view of Norton.
Yeah, that one?
Yes, that one. Tell me about what's in that, the design that's in the courtyard.
Looks like
That's
Mickey,
the first
looks
time I
like
s-
Mickey Mouse.
That's the first time I saw that,
Yeah,
so.
I don't know that that's going to stay exactly
Oh, okay.
like that. That's just poured concrete that's out in the courtyard, that's all.
Okay.
And when I saw this graphic, that's what grabbed everyone, even the construction committee people. They looked at it and said, is that supposed to be Mickey Mouse or whatever? It's nothing but poured concrete, you know, it's an area for gathering and things like that. I don't know that it will stay looking exactly like that, and I guess unless you're in a helicopter up above,
You won't see it.
you won't see it, you know. Only Will know Mickey Mouse is
Yeah,
in
exactly.
the courtyard.
So it will be a combination of, like you're saying, poured concrete and grass then, correct?
Yeah, yeah. One of the reasons the architects originally wanted to close this courtyard in and make it completely enclosed, and the maintenance people in town said, don't do that. It causes a great deal of difficulty for us getting equipment in and out, taking care of it, that sort of thing. So that's why you see this is open. You can see that, you know, there are bushes, there's grass. So it'll be an area, some of these classrooms, spaces have doors that go directly out, so that's an area where you can bring classes and do activities out there, have assemblies, things like that.
In my broken record portion, please pass along our sincere thanks to the committee as well for their continued efforts.
Will do.
As,
They are a
as
hardworking
we
group, and
march
they are
along,
very
they
appreciative of your support.
Absolutely are.
Okay.
So, and thank you.
Thank you very much.
With that, we'll move to the new business items. Item 8A is, and I'm sure Rich is going to stick around for the first four items on the new business agenda. The first of which is the award of contract for third-party code review for both Norton and North End schools. Mr. Jinks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have no less than 7 resolutions here for the schools. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution number 041624-2A. Be resolved that pursuant to the final selection of the Next Generation School Building Committee, the town council hereby awards the contract for third-party code review for the new Norton Elementary School construction project to Veersteeg Associates in the base amount of $18,785. And be it further resolved that the town manager is authorized to execute the contracts pursuant to these awards and the town's bid documents upon the approval by the town attorney as to form and legal sufficiency.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Mr. Jinks, do you want to elucidate,
It's
or do you want to,
pretty,
I was going to say, do you want to have Rich?
I don't know, Rich, do you want to comment on this at all? Okay. There's several of these in a row here, so.
bottom line is you've got a couple of things that are coming up that are required by the state of Connecticut. So the code review and the structural review are both things that the state requires, so that once the architects are done with the plans, they have to go out to an outside group to take a look at them and analyze them and make sure. The code review looks at all the codes and make sure that all of the state codes have been adhered to. The structural review looks closely at the design of the structure itself, making sure that it is sound and properly done. But both of these are required by the state. We went through the process, as we usually do, of putting out an RFQ/RFP, and we had a subcommittee that looked at the people who applied, opened the bids in public session, and then made a determination.
Thanks, Rich.
Questions or comments from the council? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously by those present. Mr. Jinks, item, is it the 2B then?
2B, right. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution number 041624-2B. Be it resolved that pursuant to the final selection of the Next Generation School Building Committee, the town council hereby awards the contract for third-party code review for the new North End Elementary School construction project to Veersteig Associates in the base amount of $22,570. And be it further resolved that the town manager is authorized to execute the contracts pursuant to these awards and the town's bid documents upon the approval by the town attorney as to form and legal sufficiency. And
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Motion second. Mr. Gussenberg, this is the same thing, just the other school.
Yeah, everything we do is in duplicate. So you just have to be aware of that.
Questions or comments about the North End portion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Which brings us to item 8B, award of contract for structural peer review for both the New Norton and North End schools. Mr. Jinks.
be resolved that the town council approves resolution number 041624-3A. Be it resolved that pursuant to the final selection of the Next Generation School Building Committee, the town council hereby awards the contract for structural peer review for the new Norton Elementary School construction project to Mackey Engineers in the base amount of $11,000. And be it further resolved, the town manager is authorized to execute the contracts pursuant to these awards and the town's bid documents upon the approval by the town attorney as to form and legal sufficiency.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh.
I think Rich spoke to this earlier when he was explaining the previous resolution.
Nothing else you want to,
No, as I said, it's required by the state to make sure that structurally everything is sound.
questions, comments? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Jinks, 3B, please.
Be resolved that the town council approves resolution number 041624-3B. Be it resolved that pursuant to the final selection of the Next Generation School Building Committee, the town council hereby awards the contract for structural peer review for the new North End Elementary School construction project to Mackey Engineers in the base amount of $12,000. And be it further resolved, the town manager is authorized to execute the contracts pursuant to these awards and the town's bid documents upon the approval by the town attorney as to form and legal sufficiency.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh, for keeping the string going there. Assuming that there are no questions on this one either, I will call for a vote. All those in favor, motion passes unanimously. Brings us to item 8C, award of contract for Geo Exchange well drilling for both New Norton and North End schools. Mr. Jinks.
Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 041624-4A. Be it resolved that pursuant to the final selection of the Next Generation School Building Committee, the Town Council hereby awards the contract for Geo Exchange Well Drilling for the new Norton Elementary School construction project to Sima Drilling Company in the base amount of $29,060. And be it further resolved that the town manager is authorized to execute the contract pursuant to these awards and the town's bid documents upon the approval by a town attorney as to form and legal sufficiency.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Mr. Gussenberg, anything on the drillings?
At each school, we are drilling 2 wells, 450 feet deep. Those will then be allowed to settle for a little bit, and then an analysis done to make sure that we're ready to go ahead and start digging for the geothermal wells. So these are test wells. We will hopefully be able to use them as part of the actual construction. And so they've been sited where the other wells would be. But it's all part of the process that the engineers need to go through to make sure that they have proper subsurface understanding of what's there.
Mr. Walsh?
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick question. So these are just a test well, so when it's ready for the regular, it'll be put out to bid again, so not necessarily the same people will be drilling, but these are just for the test. How many companies bid on that, do you know?
I don't know offhand. I wasn't directly involved with that process.
Okay.
But as you said, there's only 2 wells at each school,
Right.
and that's it. When we actually go out to full bid, that'll be wide open for others to bid on
The
it.
north end's gonna need more wells, right, than,
The north end, when we do full construction, we're only doing 2 at each
Right,
one now.
right.
But yeah, the north end's a bigger school and therefore required more wells. And I don't recall off the top of my head the exact number at each building, but
Okay.
there were more at the north end.
thanks.
Other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Which brings us to the Geo Exchange well drilling for North End. Mr. Jinks.
Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 041624-4B. Be it resolved that pursuant to the final selection of the Next Generation School Building Committee, the Town Council hereby awards the contract for Geo Exchange well drilling for the new North End Elementary School construction project to Sima Drilling Company in the base amount of $29,060. Be it further resolved that the town manager is authorized to execute the contracts pursuant to these awards and the town's bid documents upon the approval by the town attorney as to form legal sufficiency.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Questions further? Seeing none, I'll call
If I might,
for-
Mr. Chairman, I
Yes,
just saw,
I'm sorry.
Don, there were 3 bids for the geothermal.
Thank you, Rich. Call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Which brings us to item 8D, authorization to utilize electronic bidding for the new Norton and new North End school construction trade contracts. Mr. Jinks.
Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 041624-5. Be it resolved that pursuant to Town Charter Section 7-8, the Town Council authorizes the utilization of an electronic bidding process for the new Norton and North End schools construction trade contracts.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. And this one, Mr. Kimball, is there anything that we should know about this one?
I would probably just turn this one to the town attorney just for a brief explanation.
The construction manager, O&G, has been recommending electronic bidding. That's pretty much what is transpiring on these large projects. And under the town charter, there's a contemplation that there'll be paper bidding that is open and read aloud. Electronic bidding, of course, is digital, and they can have a bid opening on Zoom where the bids are open and read aloud. But out of an abundance of caution, my recommendation was to have the council approve this form of bidding so that in a couple of years, when the superintendent of schools and I have to sign a certification to the state that our local procurement requirements were followed, we're able to do that.
Questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Brings us to item 8E, acceptance and appropriation of a $21,972.06 donation from the Cheshire Senior Center Membership Association to the Human Services gift account for the Senior Center. Ms. Allard.
Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 041624-6. Be it resolved that the Town Council hereby accepts and appropriates a $21,972.06 donation from the Cheshire Senior Center Membership Association to the Human Services gift account for the Senior Center.
We have a motion. I'll give this one to Mr. Veliber, just so, thank you. Thank you both, though. Thank you, Mr. Veliber. Ms. Allard, do you want to elucidate?
Sure. The background is that the Cheshire Senior Center Membership Association was an independent group which has supported senior center programs. It is dissolving and is donating their remaining funds to the senior center. The dissolution will not limit programs or impact revenue. Membership fees are paid directly to the senior center, and the majority of funding for the membership association came from a one-time donation received many years ago.
Thank you, Ms. Allard. Questions or comments? Mr. Veliber.
Thank you. I know this is a nice donation to them, and but my question is, do they have a purpose yet for this, or is it just, Sean, do you know, or does anyone, is there a dedicated gift yet, or is it just going in and they'll use it as they want to use? Okay.
Which generally will go to the programming.
Right.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Brings us to item 8F, the appointment of members of the Sports Recognition Study Group. Ms. Pearson.
Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 041624-7. Be it resolved pursuant to Resolution Number 03122245, the Town Council established a sports recognition study group to develop a means to recognize individuals and organizations who have made significant contributions to local sports at a local location, or at a location at Bartlam Park, and also a process for vetting and selecting individuals and organizations. And be it further resolved, said study group shall submit their recommendations and plans to the Town Council no later than September 30th, 2024. And be it further resolved that the following 5 residents are hereby appointed to serve on the Sports Recognition Study Group from the present to the completion of the project: Tricia Kramer, Steve Trefone, Matt Hall, Don Walsh, and Michael Votto.
Thank you, Mr. Veliber. Questions or comments? I want to thank my 2 colleagues on the council who are serving on this. I want to thank Dr. Duffy for his appointment on behalf of the Park and Rec Commission of Mr. Trefone, and then thanks to all my colleagues for the appointments of Mr. Hall and Mr. Votto. I think this is a very solid group of 5 individuals, and I look forward to seeing their work. Okay. With that, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Brings us to item 8G, which is the adoption of an ordinance amendment to bonding requirements, Section 14-1F2, excavations, which was the source of a public hearing earlier this evening. Ms. Allard.
Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution 041624-8. Be it resolved that pursuant to the recommendation of the Ordinance Review Committee, the Town Council hereby adopts an ordinance amendment to Section 14-1 F2 excavations as follows. This ordinance amendment shall hereby be effective May 1st, 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Velleber. I know that staff is here. Do you want to talk about the excavations at all, or? that-
Unless there's some questions, it's pretty self-explanatory, we're just trying to increase from 3,000 to 10,000 due to construction costs.
Questions or comments from members of the council? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Brings us to item 8H, adoption of an ordinance amendment to prohibited hours, section 13-32, regulation of peddlers and solicitors. Ms. Allard.
Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 041624-9. Be it resolved that pursuant to the recommendation of the Ordinance Review Committee, the Town Council hereby adopts an ordinance amendment to Section 13-32L, regulations of peddlers and solicitors as follows. Hours of solicitation, no permittee or other persons while conducting the activities of a peddler or solicitor shall enter upon any private property, knock on doors, or otherwise disturb persons in their residences between the hours of 7 p.m. and 9 a.m. from April 1st through October 31st, and between the hours of 5 o'clock p.m. and 9 o'clock a.m. from November 1st through March 31st. This ordinance amendment shall hereby be effective May 1st, 2024.
We have a motion, Mr. Velleber. Thank you for a second. This item was in direct response to some public input we had at one of our earlier council meetings, where someone was understandably upset that a solicitor was at their door after dark, and asked the council to look into this. I thank the Ordinance Review Committee for their work on it, and I will ask for any questions or comments. Mr. Velleber.
First, two things. First, Sean, maybe you know this. I think that the Chief Drife had some concerns about this, or whether these things are enforceable. But I wasn't sure if he ever spoke to you about that, as far as maybe practically, maybe not, there may be, but practically enforceable. And I wonder if he'd ever mentioned that to you at all, as to whether these things are really something that can be enforced by the police.
Yes, he has had, and has expressed historically the concern that, and it may be something that the town attorney can weigh in on a little further for the details, but I think it comes back to the definition of a solicitation, which has to do with a demand for payment in full at the time that you're at the door. And so, I mean, I think the spirit of the ordinance is pretty clear, but if somebody were to, I guess in answer to your question, challenge that definition, if they were there knocking on the door, advocating for something or asking that you sign a petition, they may not be in violation of this particular ordinance. You do have the option, I think we've said this before at Ordinance Review Committee, to put a sign, a no trespassing sign on your door, or a no solicitation sign, in which case that you do have the power to control the trespassing onto your property. But absent that, the ordinance doesn't strictly prohibit that example where someone's not demanding payment in full. That's at least my understanding of it. Part of it.
But that's right. It comes down to basically the category that a solicitor falls into, whether they're a business invitee or a trespasser. So the advice to residents is, if you don't want anybody knocking on your door, just put up a no solicitation sign. So that way, if you call the PD, you report a trespass. Part of the enforcement issue has to do with what the town manager described. It also has to do with the fact that you call somebody's at your door, you're unhappy, you call the police. By the time the police get there, they're gone. So, but my understanding from talking to the chief is there hasn't been a lot of activity on this front.
Right. Okay, thank you. I wasn't, because I thought I'd heard that he may have had some concerns about this, but he wasn't here, so I just figured maybe if he'd ever passed them through you. And I'm in favor of this. I mean, obviously, this was what we had discussed at the Ordinance Review Committee meeting as far as if the issue really is people don't want people knocking on their door while it's dark, you have to sort of adjust that time for when it's dark versus when it's not. The other thing I wanted to just point out is that this ordinance will not apply to politicians. I'm sorry to everybody out there if you're listening. This does not apply to people, because politicians are not under the definition of solicitation. I just wanted to make that important because there is a time between October 31st and Election Day where this will shift to 5 o'clock, but you may still have, there may be still some people out there. So anyway, I just want to make sure that despite perhaps some people's hopes and dreams, politicians do not constitute solicitation. Thank you.
Further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Which brings us to item 8I, approval of a bid waiver for one 70-horsepower Homa pump for the town's influent pump station. Mr. Jinks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved, the Town Council approves resolution number 041-624-10, whereas the WPCD has requested a waiver of bid for the purchase of one 70-horsepower Homa pump for the town's influent pump station, and whereas the current lead time for the pump is 14 weeks, and whereas Mechanical Solutions Incorporated was the lowest price out of the vendors investigated, and whereas this new 70-horsepower direct replacement pump will come with a 5-year warranty and is a direct fit into our current pump setup, and whereas the Town Council finds it in the best interest of the town to waive said bid, now therefore be it resolved that the Town Council pursuant to Section 7-1C11 of the Town Charter waives the bidding requirement for the purchase of one 70-horsepower Homa pump and authorizes the purchase of said pump from Mechanical Solutions in an amount not to exceed $65,000.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. We have a motion and a second. Questions? Do you have any information, Jim, that you want to?
Well, I could describe what's on the summary sheet here, but I think our plant director might be able to elucidate that a little better than I would. If he would like to come speak, that'd be great.
Yeah, just
Thank you.
grab the mic there.
Yeah, so the current setup we have now is we have two 70-horsepower pumps in our influent pump station. The idea is to just get a direct replacement because we have the 70-horsepower Homas right now. They were put in during the upgrade. We're going to get the new pump, put it in the stand so there's no downtime, and then send the old pump out for a rebuild. We're not able to do that at the moment because we need two big pumps on to maintain flows. So this is the only real solution, is to get a new pump, put it in its place so we can get a preventative maintenance program going and rotate these pumps. So if we did it an alternate way and we risked it and we got a rainstorm, we'd have to go rent a Godwin pump, which those are very expensive, and the lead time on parts right now for pumps is anywhere from 3 to 4 months. So this will be a solution that'll get us through the next 10, 20 years.
Ms. Allard.
So this might be what Tim was talking about. Perhaps this is where I'm not so smart. Can you please explain to me what an influent pump station is and why it's important to our town?
Okay. It's the main receiver of all the wastewater at the beginning of the wastewater treatment plant. So we see flows of anywhere from 3 to, sometimes in the rain, we get 7 million. So without those pumps, we don't treat wastewater, essentially.
Does it collect from the entire town?
Yep.
Is it part of?
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
So the
Yep,
whole
it's
town
a-
operates off of part of this?
Yeah,
Relies on
all
this?
the flow that comes from the town of Cheshire goes into our influent pump station at the plant first, and then it's pumped through the rest of the treatment plant. So it's the heart of the whole plant.
So it's a big deal?
It's a big deal. Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? One real quick. You talked about once this is in place that the pump it's replacing will go out for rebuild. What does a rebuild pump cost?
Every pump manufacturer is different, but I would guess anywhere from $9,000 to $15,000 to get all the wearable parts replaced. So then we'll have that pump at the plant at the ready for the next pump to get rebuilt. So it'll be a redundant system we're having.
is there a difference, I assume there is, but is there a difference in warranty between a new pump and a rebuilt?
Yeah, the rebuild, they'll usually give you a 1 year on their workmanship. The new pump comes with a 5-year warranty on everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Yeah, Mr. Veliber.
Thank you. Just out of curiosity, what's the estimated lifespan of a new pump versus what's a rebuild?
So these Homas were put in 2014. They've been running ever since. So, I mean, if you keep up with the maintenance, you can run them for probably 15 years. You know, because they run 24 hours a day, 365. There really is no downtime. But you get a good 10 to 15 years out of a new pump.
And then, so if you rebuild the existing ones, you can rotate them?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep.
And with that, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Brings us to item 8J, amendment to vendor bid and bid waiver approved via resolution number 111423-8 for the purchase of a senior center handicapped accessible van. Ms. Allard.
Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 041624-11, whereas the Senior Center requested a waiver of bid for the purchase of a handicapped accessible van to be funded by an ARPA grant appropriation, since the vendor on the state bid was unable to provide either a written quote or the vehicle itself after months of non-responsiveness. And whereas the Town Council approved this waiver of bid through Resolution Number 111423-8 and authorized the purchase of said van from Mobility Works. And whereas subsequently, Mobility Works was unable to facilitate the purchase in a timely basis and another vendor was located and can complete the purchase. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Town Council hereby amends Resolution Number 111423-8 to authorize the purchase of the handicapped accessible van from Advanced Wheels.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. We have a motion and a second. Ms. Talbot, do you want to comment on this? It sounds like it's fairly straightforward that we...
Because of our purchasing procedures, we have to change the council permission to enable them to purchase from a different vendor. But this vendor actually has it ready to go. The other vendor couldn't supply the vehicle. After they said they could.
At the same price?
It's at the same price.
Yep. Mr. Veliber.
Yeah, and the original motion was also by ARPA grant too, so this is just ARPA grant on the original and ARPA grant now, right?
Mr. Walsh.
I just wanted to just clarify, it's a handicap accessible for the senior center, but is this also can be used by those who are not seniors who have a disability?
Yes, it's, instead of yelling
Sorry
at
about
you.
that.
Well, usually I sit close, but we have a lot of high school kids here, which is great. Yes, any transportation for the senior center is for elderly and disabled. And this is a smaller van. So we have the larger buses. The problem with the larger buses is they can't access driveways and they have trouble accessing smaller parking lots in New Haven or Waterbury. So this vehicle will provide a great alternative to the seniors and those with disabilities in terms of getting around.
The delivery on this is scheduled?
It's not scheduled yet, but once everything's in place, so tomorrow I'll
Are we talking
call the
like
senior
months,
center and they're
years,
gonna
or
get.
what?
Oh, no,
Weeks?
we're talking, it's on the lot, so
Okay,
it's just
so-
a matter
okay.
of the paperwork. So
Great.
we should be able to get it
That's exciting.
in
Good.
operation by the next
Wonderful.
month.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Brings us to item 8K, acceptance and appropriation of a $100,000 grant in aid from the State Bond Commission to be used for improvements to the Lock 12 Historic Park. Ms. Pearson.
Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 041624-12. Be it resolved that the Town Council hereby accepts and appropriates a $100,000 grant and aid from the State Bond Commission to be used for improvements to the Lock 12 Historic Park. And be it further resolved that the Town of Cheshire may enter into, with and deliver to the State of Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection any and all documents which it deems to be necessary or appropriate for aforementioned grant. And be it further resolved that Sean M. Kimball, as Town Manager of the Town of Cheshire, is authorized to directed to execute and deliver and any all documents on behalf of the Town of Cheshire, and to do and perform all acts and things which he deems to be necessary or appropriate to carry out the terms of such documents.
We have a motion. Mr. Veliber will second. And I see the guru of grants is in the house, so I will turn it over to you, Mr. Martelli.
Sure, thank you very much. So this project was born out of a site visit to Lock 12 last summer. We had a news crew come out to do some, to highlight Lock 12 as a historical asset in the state of Connecticut. At that time, there was some parts of the park that could use a little bit of refresh. The state was looking for projects that had historical nature to them that were also along recreational trails, so I submitted a grant for Lock 12 because I thought it was a perfect fit for it. In the actual scope of work, if you take a look at it, there's a lot of things that are identified from the historical markers, landscaping and lock cleanup, masonry repointing, and also the Lock 12 Museum. I think the plan's a little bit ambitious, and so I think we need to look to see what we're able to do with this funding. The way that it's written to the state is pretty loose, and so once we have the Park and Recreation Commission as well as engineering take a look to see exactly what we can do with the funding, it's going to really direct kind of where we go forward. One thing that I really want to do in the short order is replace all the historical markers. They're broken, they're faded, you can't really tell what the history of the site is. And then some general landscaping type work, and then really looking at the masonry, and then what is able to be done with the Lock 12 Museum. I did have the SHPO come down and take a look at it. It's not actually, the property itself is on the historical register, but the museum structure itself is not. That was moved from a farm somewhere in the Brooksville section of town to that property. It houses different artifacts. So I think we need to take a better look at the Lock 12 Museum before we go directing $45,000 to that project. There was an architectural report that was done of it. So we do have some of that, and basically to summarize what that evaluation was is that the building would be sealed, and then there would be displays in the windows where people can go up and they could press buttons, and there would be either a recording or there'd be a light to show the different artifacts for the use of the canal. But all of that's, we have to work all that through. So this is really to get the paperwork signed, get it submitted to the state, so then we could develop the plan to move the project forward. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Wolf.
So just have some comments about the historical markers. I know that you said that those need to be replaced. I know that there's other work that's going to be done along the trail, whether it be Ball and Socket, or I know the East Coast Greenway is going to be doing some signage along the trail for mile markers and things like that. I just would ask that it be kind of consistent. Maybe work with all those groups so that we don't have 3 or 4 different kinds of trail markers along our Cheshire part. I'm not sure exactly how much of that's going to be on the trail versus in the property itself, but I guess that's all. A consistency along our, at least the Cheshire part, of what we can control. But
Absolutely. Yep, that makes a lot of sense. And if you go out there now, there's a big slab of brownstone that talks about the operation of the canal, and it's really not even legible at this point. And so that was the one, like in this, that's what we're talking about. And then there was a bronze plaque that was on the water fountain that had like a rendering of what the canal looked like. Unfortunately, somebody walked away with that. And then there's a couple other spots along the trail that are just missing. So we wanted to focus on that. But the mile markers, and we could take a look at as we're looking at the different signage on the property. Because now from the trail, like if you're on your bike or whatever, you don't even know that there's restrooms there, that there's the different site amenities that do exist on the property.
Andrew, we haven't spoken about this, but As you know, our firm had done the restoration of the trail about 35 years ago when the design of the trail and the restoration of the lock. And we have the original plans.
That
But
would be
also
very
I'd like to-
helpful.
I'd like to offer one of my landscape architects, who probably worked on it, even though that long ago, to consult with you to help you define some of this work if you need that. I mean,
That would be great. Yeah, we could talk about it offline.
as a,
Yeah,
as,
for
you
sure.
know, as a courtesy to the town, so.
All right, thank you.
Anything else? Seeing none, call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Brings us to our final item of new business, item 8L, approval of a memorandum of understanding with Chesprocott Health District, possible executive session, which, is there a need for an executive session? Or are we prepared to,
Mr. Chair.
Sure.
I was going to ask to table this motion tonight in light of the fact that the director has resigned and there is no director in place. And I think putting an MOU without a director at this time, or even an interim director, it might put a burden on the new people. And I'm just thinking it may be worth just tabling it until they have a new director in place and then bring it forward.
I actually would argue the opposite side of that, Mr. Walsh, and say that it would be good for the new director as they come in to have a complete sense of what the MOU is involved before they agree to step into that role, but.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, they could see what will be coming, but I mean, it could take months before they have somebody in place. I don't know what their plans are. I would ask that, I think we did ask that we meet with the board of directors to find out what their plan is and when this will be happening. But I think, there's a lot of information in this MOU that, a new director is gonna have to do. So I agree, they need to know what's required of them. But there is nobody who's going to be able to fulfill any of these obligations until there is a leader in place, in my opinion, so.
Ms. Allard?
I guess my question would be, will there be an acting director should nobody be hired for some time? And if that's the case, I would recommend that they have an MOU in place while they're acting. And also, it's my understanding that the previous council expressed there was serious concern that the community had, although I didn't hear it from the community. I'd like to give you the benefit of the doubt. If that's the case, I think that perhaps we should make sure that we're establishing some rules and understanding as quickly as possible for the sake of the community.
Just so you know, I'm not asking to eliminate this altogether. I'm saying that there is an MOU that needs to be in place. But like I said, we don't know what the plans are and when a new director will be coming, whether it's an interim director. We haven't even heard anything yet from any of the board of directors members. So I think for that reason, I feel putting an MOU in place it's not going to do any good because there's nobody who can follow that. Follow the requirements that are in that right now. It could be just in a month that we bring it back in a month, but right now there is nobody there who can do this, who can follow this.
Well, I would argue that there's not only a board of directors, but as Ms. Allard alluded to, they're going to establish an interim, director. So there is going to be someone in charge. There's not a vacuum. Ms. Kramer.
I'm not expecting any changes to the MOU as the leadership changes at Chesprocott. Maybe we can put in some sort of amendment stating that some of the timelines, if they're not met by new leadership, is enacted once if the MOU directive is specifically involving Maura's position, if those can be held over till she's replaced, or the board is held responsible instead of the director for meeting these requirements. Because we've put these requirements in place to prevent and provide for the community the disturbance that we had at the end of the last, I guess, session, so to speak. So to not get these through as soon as we can, I think would be a disservice to our role. I do understand your point, Don, but I think that unless we're making any significant changes, I think we should put it in, maybe with the caveat of some of them not being enforceable immediately.
We did ask for significant changes as well, well, not significant, just added a few which were not added in there. We felt there should be more things about finance and about the move to Arts Place and things like that, which were not put in there. That's fine. We don't have the majority to make that vote either way. But like I said, I'm not saying to eliminate an MOU altogether. I think an MOU needs to be in place, and I think it will help whoever is the new director. But at this time, there is not one. And even if we have to delay it by a month or so, just until we have somebody in place. Because we're not going to require somebody when they don't have a director to fulfill any of these deadlines that are in here, so.
Mr. Jenks and then Mr. Malone.
I mean, it's not an unreasonable suggestion Don's making, but I do think that there's no reason for us not to go forward with the MOU as it stands. The meat of this MOU, the intention was to kind of enhance the communication between us and Chesprocott, and also to have Chesprocott report to us on a quarterly basis. The staff at Chesprocott has already submitted a draft of the first quarterly report, so they're already doing this work. They've been doing this work since January, since they initially thought the MOU was due January 1st. So the work's in process. It's not dependent on a director necessarily, but the new or the board is meeting next week at least twice to discuss hiring an interim director soon. So they'll have leadership again, in the near future. So there's really no reason to, I think, not to go forward with the MOU as it stands and begin this new relationship sooner rather than later, as far as better communication and better reporting between them and us.
Mr. Malone.
I'd like to follow up on what Don said at the end over there and try and understand what happened. So there was a series of recommendations of modifications to the MOU that we drafted together and we submitted. We never heard anything about those, never had any response, never had a chance for any discussion regarding why we thought those were valuable. And I'm curious as to why they weren't at least given an opportunity to be discussed. Is there some reason that they weren't? I don't even know if the rest of the council members reviewed them and had opinions on our suggestions.
So there was information put in concerning finance, which, if you follow
No, there's not, Peter.
There were seven
There's
words
not.
added.
There's no information on finance in there.
the word finance was added in at least 2 locations from previous drafts.
There is an objective to, let me see if I can find it. Maybe I'm wrong, and if I'm wrong, I will.
The first one I know is in the recitals.
It's in the recitals, to provide a formal process to continuously evaluate the financial condition, and one of the objectives was fiscal sustainability. So where's finance in the meat of the reporting requirements? I didn't find it, and maybe I just missed it.
Well, I mean, they're reporting their finances every time the board meets. They're getting very similar to what we get from Mr. Jascott. We get financials, as does the Chesprocott board.
So I understand that, but it's not in the MOU. So we talk about the importance of fiscal management, but we don't tell them what we expect from them relative to that. And if it's just getting their reports, maybe we should say that, but it's silent. So I was confused at why we didn't at least have a chance to deliberate regarding that. I mean, this is really just a reporting MOU, as Jim said. It just makes them report to us about what they're doing, but not anything else. There's no real assessment. There's a discussion of community satisfaction surveys, but they're performed internally. So, I mean, it's hard to assess community satisfaction when you're controlling the messaging, except for one separate survey, just one. There's no discussion of employee satisfaction required in there. And those were the comments that we suggested be incorporated in them. They weren't dramatic, but I thought they would help make the MOU a more productive document. And I would have liked an opportunity to kind of discuss that with the council before we've just had it here as a formal document ready to vote. I also noticed the time of the essence is in here, and I'm sure the attorney could speak to that, but I mean, if there is any concern that they are not able to perform because of any of the issues with senior management moving on, with time of the essence in there, then they would, now maybe you're right, Jim, I wasn't aware that they're already doing it. You have knowledge that I don't have. Maybe they're ready to submit these reports, but with time of the essence, if they don't submit it, they'd already be in default of the MOU. I don't know, I can't remember what the default provisions are, but we have, time of the essence is pretty strong wording, and I'm not sure if it needs to be in here with this. I mean, maybe you feel it's necessary, but it does put added burden on them. So I would like to still discuss, I would like to hear from other council members as to whether they think these minor additions to the MOU could be helpful and productive. As Don said, if the majority members don't, then I don't think it's going to matter. I mean, but I would like to hear what people felt. We never had an opportunity to do that.
Can I just address one thing real quick?
Yeah.
I just want to address one thing as far as the anonymous complaint line that they've set up is for internal as well as external. I mean, anybody can use that.
There's an anonymous complaint line. That's not in the MOU, but that's something that you're aware of that I'm not aware of?
It's a service that they've added as, I mean, part of our request that they do, kind of going forward.
An anonymous complaint line.
So they have an anonymous complaint line that they've set up. It's a third-party service.
You said our request. Whose request?
Our discussions with Chesapeake.
Where am I? I mean, I don't know who's been, I guess people have been having discussions with Chesapeake. I have not been, so. I didn't see that in here, Jim. I mean, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I'm just saying, there's a third-party anonymous request line that's been set up, that they initiated this, before this council took control. It's for external and internal, so anybody can use it. It's on the website. You can access it to the website. As I said, it goes to a third-party, intermediary kind of thing, so anybody can, the public, businesses, employees, so they have that set up now.
So, I mean, I would still welcome a discussion regarding the effectiveness of the MOU. It's a lot of reporting. It's quarterly and monthly. It's just reporting. It's really nothing else. And it's internal reporting, so we get what they want to give us, which I'm sure will be accurate, but, I mean, it is what it is. And there is an anonymous complaint line, which I wasn't aware of. That's great, but it's not in the MOU as far as I can see. And there was only one provision for one anonymous survey, which would be nice to have maybe yearly. I mean, I don't want to overburden Chesapeake. I really want them to be successful. I think some financial guidance would be helpful to help them be successful. Even if the MOU just says we're going to get their reports on a timely basis, and we're going to have a chance to review them, and I don't, but we do talk about fiscal responsibility here, and we don't enumerate as to how we expect that to be done. Others want to speak, so.
So I think that you raised some valid points, and when I was going over the MOU, I noticed under the recitals, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sixth one down kind of caught my attention. And it says, whereas the parties seek to ensure that the member towns and their respective residents receive transparent, timely, high-quality, and legally and financially compliant public health services from Chesprocott. So that made me question, where are the guidelines as to what constitutes compliance? There's got to be something to measure, are they financially compliant? So for the life of me now, while we're speaking, I could swear that I saw in here that they're obligated to undergo an audit, whether or not it's a yearly period or quarterly, I'm not quite so sure, but they are required to be audited, and it was my understanding that that audit would determine whether or not they are financially compliant per State of Connecticut Public Health Services. So does that address some of your concerns?
I'm optimistic regarding Chesprocott. I think, I know one individual's been added to the board. I don't know the other board members. I know, that one individual happens to be my cousin, but I know how serious an individual he is, and I know he.
Good.
So just by having that person there, I feel comfortable. I don't know the other board members. I'm sure some of them are also very, hardworking, and so I'm optimistic. But if we're going to do an MOU, I think it should be as clear and as helpful as possible. I'm not sure. I think this is almost a little too burdensome and not broad enough.
But if they are required to be audited on a yearly basis, and the auditor says that they are within financial compliance, I'm unclear what other questions you would like to have answered.
Well, if we have any that we want to ensure through this MOU that they're fiscally compliant, then the audit was always going to be there. What is different? I mean, are we going to,
Well, that's the part, that's where I'm confused, because, it's my understanding that the previous council had a lot of concerns about, their financial record keeping or something. So I'm not so sure what's going to be different. But if it's written here and they're being held to an audit, does that, assuage your concerns? And then also, secondly, it mentions that they're going to be pursuing accreditation. It would be my understanding that accreditation would also be also a more rigorous evaluation, that they would have to, check boxes as to what would be, a gold standard public health department, much more so than I think a council could even determine. We're not the experts on that, so.
I don't expect to understand how to run a health department, but I
Right.
do expect to know how it affects the town of Cheshire.
Right.
And what upset me last time around, when I became aware that they had accumulated substantial funds for a purpose that wasn't related to health services, and our rates on a per diem basis for the community were very high when we had those excess funds. That, they were doing audits before, we had access to their financial records before, but somehow or another, we didn't know that. So that was several years of us not knowing what they were doing, and they were under the same financial audit requirements that they are under now. If we're gonna do an MOU, let's make sure we're aware of what they're doing. I'd also like in the MOU to have some say as a community as to what they're doing with those funds they've accumulated, because many of those are our funds that didn't go towards reducing our per diem rate. And so it would be nice to have at least them report to us as to what they're doing with those funds.
Ms. Pearson and then Ms. Kramer.
I guess going back to what Jim had said, and I saw this when you saw this. It's not like we talked about this beforehand or there's anything else going on here. This is a communication document, and I guess my concern, going back to Don's initial request to delay this, I'm concerned, honestly, about what this communicates if we continue to delay to the other communities, because Wolcott and Prospect were very much affected by what happened over these last 6 months. And so I think time is of the essence. This document did not exist before. It was something that was asked for. We've now clarified. It provides that communication. It provides for these reporting obligations in terms of the request over fiscal oversight. do we really want all three communities weighing in their particular opinions? And not to say that we should not be providing feedback, but that should be through this process that exists here. And I think that's what we want of the other two communities as well. We don't want Prospect coming in and telling us what to do with our funds necessarily, but we are one of three as a result of this document. And so we will have an opportunity as a result of these reporting obligations to ask those kinds of questions and to receive that information. And there was no process before, is my understanding. Am I correct in that? There was really no process for this reporting that exists. This is going to clarify that for us.
Well, I think state agencies have to have an audit done yearly anyway.
The audit, but...
Which we're still waiting for this year's audit, which we haven't seen yet.
But nothing to this extent. We didn't have these kinds of reporting obligations.
But there's
and so
nothing in
this
here
is
about
new.
fiscal reporting, just to be clear. They don't have to do any other reporting to us per this MOU. They do have their own reporting that we have access to, but this MOU doesn't even say that they have an obligation to give it to us. We can get it, I'm sure it's public record, but there's no fiscal reporting. We talk about fiscal responsibility, but we don't define what we expect from them. We shouldn't talk about fiscal responsibility in the MOU if we don't have any expectation for them to do anything other than what they're doing now. That's my opinion. I'm not an attorney. I'm uncomfortable with this MOU, in my opinion. It just doesn't do much. And it's a lot of reporting. It's monthly reporting on some. It's quarterly reporting on others. It's a lot of extra work for them. That may be necessary. I'm not sure we need all that reporting. But we're going to get numbers of septic systems they reviewed, things like that. How are we going to evaluate that? What's that going to mean to us as a council? So there's stuff in here we're going to get that I don't understand even how we're going to use it. But I want to be helpful to Chesprocott. I really sincerely do. I want to do what we can to help them be successful. And if getting an MOU to them you think is going to help them be more successful, I'm supportive of the concept. I'd like it to maybe be refined a little bit. But if the comments that we provided to enhance it, we just never heard comments. This is helpful tonight. At least I'm hearing from some members as to what their reaction to some of these thoughts were. So that's helpful, Peter. I appreciate that. So.
Ms. Allard and then Mr. Jinks, and then I'm gonna, we've put the cart in front of the horse a little bit here by, going to discussion before we even got a motion or a second or potentially a table on the up for vote. So let me get these two comments and then we'll get back to it. Ms. Allard.
I'm
sorry.
not old-fashioned. I kept my maiden name when we were married. It's Kramer. Thank you for bringing your concerns to the town council. It's always good to hear perspectives. I am in favor of moving forward with this MOU as is and seeing over the course of the next year how it affects their productivity with the amount of reporting that we are requiring. It is to my understanding that the MOU was built out in direct response to concerns that were brought to the community from the pre-existing town council. So a lot of the items in the MOU were specifically put there to address concerns that were repeatedly addressed meeting after meeting prior to voting to leave Chesprocott. Not all of them may be perfect as they stand right now, but I think over time we'll be able to refine the MOU. Chesprocott is not a business that we own. We cannot control them as we would want to control and oversee a business that we were running. We are buying a service of which we are owed specific timelines, accountability, professionalism, and although I think we've been remiss on the professionalism on our side towards Chesprocott at times, I think mending these fences at this time with them agreeing to move forward with the amount of onus that we're putting on them in their reporting through the MOU at this time is acceptable. They also have board meetings, which I've attended. They're incredibly enlightening. You can ask questions, find out a lot of the information that you feel that you are missing, And we are not the only region involved with Chesprocott. So we have to engage in a way that is inclusive of everybody who they render services to. And as far as finances go, it's to my understanding that not all of the funds that they accrued were directly pulled from payer services, us paying them. Some of that money was accrued due to maturation of certain funds, and I may be misremembering that, but that's definitely information that you can glean from them at a board meeting or through direct correspondence with them. But for the record, I am ready to move on this evening. Thank you.
Mr. Jinks?
Thanks. As far as the reporting goes, the quarterly reporting, I think, John, you're right. It may, some of it may be, at least initially, not necessarily relevant or not necessarily, much that we can do with, right? But it can evolve from where we begin, right? We can go from there to information that we feel is more relevant to us and that we can actually understand or utilize. But the reporting is important because, namely, there in the last fall there was a lot of comments made about Chesprocott, not necessarily living up to their responsibilities. They're not necessarily doing what they're supposed to be doing. So now we'll actually have a record of what's actually happening, what their timelines are, and how well they're fulfilling their responsibilities, which I think is important, as well as having that is important, as well as us understanding it. As far as the financial management, that's the board's responsibility, in my opinion. We have made an important change, I think, with this MOU, is having an ex officio member on the board. The council's at board meetings and has, a direct line of communication to the director and to the board there now, which we didn't have before. So I think, and that doesn't completely address all of your concerns, but I do think that this is, we're in a much better place now than we were previously, and I think we should move forward with it.
All right, so with that, let's move the horse back in front of the cart and put the motion on the table to, it officially is item 8L, the approval of memorandum of understanding with Chesprocott Health District. Mr. Jinks.
Forgot we had a resolution. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution number 041624-13. Be it resolved that the town council approves the memorandum of understanding with Chesprocott Health District with the terms and conditions presented. And be it further resolved that the town council authorizes town manager Sean Kimball to execute this memorandum of understanding pursuant to the terms and conditions as presented, and approval by the town attorney as to form and function.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Ms. Kramer, thank you.
Mr. Chair, a motion to table this resolution?
Second.
We have a motion to table for Mr. Walsh, seconded by Mr. Veliber. All those in favor, please signify. Opposed? Motion is defeated by a 6-3 count with Mr. Mylone, Mr. Veliber, and Mr. Walsh in favor. Move on to discussion, if there is further discussion regarding item 8L. I would, go ahead, Mr. Veliber, but I do want to give the town attorney a chance to weigh in before we wrap up our discussion.
Absolutely, and I appreciate it. So I just wanted a couple of questions. One, even though it's talked about that there will be audits, audits are, I don't see it in here being specifically addressed in this document, that there's going to be some kind of audit there. And are we just assuming that because that's part of their requirement, are they supposed to be doing an annual audit?
Audits are a state statute.
Right. So, but we talked about it auditing, but there's nothing in here about audits, but maybe that's covered already. My big question is, what's the status in the other towns? My understanding is the other towns have already received this and are looking at this, correct?
They've received it and looked at it. They were given the opportunity to comment, and have made no changes.
Okay. Because, that's one of the things, I mean, obviously I want to make sure that, we're still going to be kicking this around. And at a minimum, I would suggest that we need to make a change to section number 2, term and effective date. It should read one or more of the member towns withdraw from Chesapeake, not one of more. So the word of should be changed to the word or.
With that, Mr. D'Onofrio, do you want to, is there anything during our premature discussion which gave you pause as to why this council should not proceed with the MOU?
Well, first of all, let's all understand what the MOU is, okay? From a corporate governance perspective, the Connecticut general statutes require every municipality to have a health department. Cheshire's options are to either belong to a health district or to have a full-time internal health department. You can't have a part-time health department because you belong to a district for too long. So from a compliance perspective, you need to have a health department, and those are your two options, right? So you belong to the Chesprocott Health District. The Chesprocott Health District is a separate entity. It's not a town agency, right? They have their own bylaws. They have their own compliance requirements. They have their own statutory obligations. They have their own licensure through the executive director. And the qualifications of the executive director are established by statute. The obligations of the board are established by statute. The composition of the board is established by statute. The idea behind the MOU was to address very specific concerns that were raised last year, okay? So I suggested the MOU because there was no existing contractual relationship with any of the 3 constituent municipalities and the health district. And there's nothing in the statute that prohibits there from being any type of contractual relationship. The key provisions in terms of reporting are in paragraph 4, 4A and 4B. One of the key provisions in 4B specifically says on a monthly basis, and when I wrote this last year, the idea was it would be effective January 1st, and the first report would be in March, and we would agree on a format for that report by January 15th. So any concerns that anybody has about the composition of the report, read 4B. In a format to be agreed upon by the parties by no later than January 15th. At a minimum, the reports shall include. So whatever it is you want in those reports, you have an opportunity to come up with a format for the report. Likewise, in 4A, when we talk about the quarterly reporting of service delivery data, okay? We talk about the primary focus of the report being the timeliness of Chesprocott's response to requests for services. But we don't limit it to that. We say, and such other relevant objective data as required by the member towns or deemed appropriate by Chesprocott. So if there's specific additional items that you would like, we're not foreclosed from having that discussion. In fact, since this hasn't gone to Chesprocott, and we're now sitting here 5 months after it was drafted, these dates are going to have to get changed, okay? Obviously, we're not getting the first report March 5th, and we're not getting the first quarterly report April 10th. So those dates are going to have to be changed. You know, my suggestion is now that you've had Prospect and Wolcott sign off on the MOU, send it to Chesprocott. In terms of the concern about a vacancy, by state statute, there can only be a vacancy for up to 60 days. Okay? If that position is vacant for more than 60 days, the commissioner of the Department of Public Health has a mandatory legal obligation to fill it. So that's the duration, the maximum duration of the vacancy. The board, you have representation on the board. You should be getting information. You were not getting information, at least not to the level of satisfaction that was desired, which was a driver for the MOU, to put together a legally binding document that obligates some reporting on some periodic basis. If you think monthly is too much or quarterly is too much, it's whatever, however often you want to get the data. Part of the idea when you do a document like this is to force the reporting entity to actually do the work, more so than it is for you to be expected to scrutinize it every month. Okay? So, in terms of the format of the report, it's whatever you want it to be. This contemplated that there was going to be a meeting between the parties to agree on what that format was going to look like. And that's still what my recommendation is. Because several of you raised issues tonight that you may want to include in the report. In terms of audit and all that stuff, you got to read their bylaws. That's their corporate governance document. The bylaws track the statute. The statute requires the audit. The bylaws require an audit. So this is not intended to be a corporate governance document. This is intended to be a contract. Okay? If it was a corporate governance document, we wouldn't have anybody besides Chespercott be a party to it. It's intended to be a contract that has, it's got time is of the essence in there. Because otherwise, what good is it? Right? If we're going to say quarterly and we're going to say monthly and they don't give you the reports, then it's not a breach unless it says time is of the essence. That's why it's in there. Likewise, there's dispute resolution provisions and, a variety of other provisions that may seem like boilerplate but have legal significance. So, that's my input as the drafter of the original document. Thank you.
So, Mr. D'Onofrio, then, based on what you're saying, with the fact that there does need to be some date changes and the like, the one typo that Mr. Veliber picked up on in item 2, are you comfortable with us voting to approve an MOU and then seeing the final version subsequent to your changes?
I'm fine with that. The only thing that I want to emphasize is you're not signing this until the Chespercott board approves it. So I don't know when that's going to be. They may say we don't want to approve it until we have a new executive director on board because we want he or she to provide input. Or they may say, yeah, we knew this was coming, it's fine. In which case, the chair of the board, I'd rather have the chair of the board sign it than an interim executive director, quite frankly. But I don't have any issue with moving forward with it. I just think that we need to have a dialogue, and the best way to start the dialogue is to provide them with the document so that they see exactly what it is that we're looking for.
So in the second part of the resolution where it says the town council authorizes town manager Sean M. Kimball to execute this memorandum of understanding, he is going to receive the changes from you and then execute it.
Well, that one change.
Do we need date changes?
He doesn't, what I'm saying is it shouldn't be executed at this point.
Okay.
Because they need to approve it. Right now, it's one side of the table has approved the document and the other side hasn't seen it.
So if we vote on it, send it to Chespercott, then the two parties can hammer out the date changes. The change to item number 2, the typo would already be
Yep,
made
I'll fix that.
prior to sending it to them.
Yep.
But you're comfortable with us moving forward then?
Yeah, I mean, if they come back with changes, then it needs to come back to the council.
Right.
Substantive changes.
Okay.
And there, just to clarify, there's 4 parties involved in this contract.
Correct.
Okay, 5.
4.
4.
Yeah. And Wolcott and Prospect have already seen this and, said it's okay by us. So, okay. Yes.
Just in light of what Mr. D'Onofrio just said, in terms of now knowing that the Board of Directors has to approve this before anything takes place, that makes me feel a little better because, that would, if they feel they're ready to do it, then let them do it because they're the ones who are going to have to oversee it. So I don't have an issue with that. Thank you for clarifying that to us. I still feel there could be more, and hopefully going forward we could add more to this. But I don't want to hold up anything in terms of moving forward. Like John said, we just hope for the best for Chesprocott, and we want to move forward, and we need it to be successful. So, in light of that, I will go along with this.
Ms. Allard?
Thank you. I just wanted to say one more thing. Just to check my understanding, Mr. D'Onofrio, that we really don't have authority over how Chesprocott manages their finances. Is that correct?
Well, you have representation on the Board of Directors.
Right.
Okay? And your ultimate authority, you'll have a lot more say with this MOU because there's a lot of KPI that they are required to report to you. And I would urge you to carefully read the entire MOU because there, like I said, and Sean and I had mentioned this to Sean, there is some stuff in here that people may gloss over because they may see it as boilerplate, like paragraph 10, for example, the notice to cure and remedies on
The
breach.
grace period, yeah.
But the bottom line is that if you look at 4B again, and I don't want to belabor this, but in addition to saying that you're going to dictate the format of the monthly report, we do say in here at a minimum what the reports shall include, but we also say metrics relevant to key indicators and relevant guidance. So, if there's information that you want to be included in that report, then the idea here is you're going to come up with a report template, and that's what they're going to use every month. But ultimately, if you disagree with how the board is governing the entity, your right is to withdraw from the district.
Right. That is within.
That's your
Right.
remedy.
Right.
That's ultimately your remedy.
Right.
So if they were to breach the MOU, it's the same remedy.
Right. We would have that right because we've been with Chesprocott for longer than 2 years. We could withdraw from Chesprocott at any time for that reason or another reason, correct?
You can withdraw for no reason at all.
Right. If we did join a new health district, it's my understanding by state law, we're required to stay with a new health district for a 2-year period before we could withdraw. So
Oh.
even if we don't like the way they're operating, we would essentially be stuck there, right? Thank you.
Well, yes and no, because the statute requires you to have a health department.
Mm-hmm.
So you wouldn't be able to join another district. You'd have to have a full-time, you basically have to hire 2 people,
Right,
have a
okay.
full-time health department. Yeah.
Thank you for that clarity. And then just to my Republican counterparts, I just wanted to say, I'm a taxpayer here too. We're all taxpayers here. I appreciate the fact that you were looking at the finances and trying to save us some money. That is a valuable thing that we want our council representation to do. So the fact that you were looking for that is absolutely something that is our job. I take that just as seriously as you do. I can tell you that I'm going to get into my clunky old car, and I don't make a lot of money, so this is really a valuable trait for a counselor to have, in my opinion. One of the things that Chesprocott said at one of the hearings prior, back in the fall, was that, well, it's my understanding 2 things. First of all, that They should have a healthy reserve, just like, even though I have a clunky car, I don't live paycheck to paycheck, right? I've got a little bit of a buffer there. And I think that that's a good thing. But also that they were trying to save for the building and planning for those buildings, which is a very responsible thing to do in my perspective. But one thing that really struck home with me was that should, for some reason, God forbid, 1,000 times over, that we should be the victims of some biological warfare, they would be prepared to protect us. And if that means that they need to make sure that they have a financial reserve to do so, I am fully on board with that. Additionally, I feel comfortable. I really try to view this with objectivity and try to, even though I only heard from one community member regarding the level of service, their dissatisfaction with Chesprocott, I truly try to take your concerns for, as valid, and I feel comfortable that this MOU provides our community with at least some transparency with, are they meeting the standards and expectations, and the fact that they are pursuing accreditation, which really will hold them to a rigorous level of service with respect to a public health department. I feel that that addresses the community's concerns, which truly is important to me, and I think it should be to everybody here. I'm sure it is. I feel comfortable moving forward with those changes. Just wanted to say that for the record.
Mr. Jinks.
Thank you. Just, I think we've sort of beat this to death at this point, but I just want to say briefly that with really only this direction, starting in January, Chesprocott did begin to put together reporting that we're asking for here. As I mentioned, I've seen a draft. We're in a good starting place for what they can provide us, and as Jeff said, we can modify this, and we can, if there's something we want to add, we can. But they're more than capable of providing us the reporting that we would ask for and that they should be providing. So I think they're eager to do that as a staff, and I think they've, as I said, they've already begun this work. So it's good that we kind of finalize this and give them a little further direction as far as what that reporting should be, so we can move forward.
Mr. Milone.
So I appreciate this discussion this evening. I'm not going to vote in favor of this motion. Seems like it's going to carry, that's fine. And not out of disrespect and not out of a desire for Chesprocott to be successful, for two reasons. One is I would have liked to have this conversation and had a chance to vet this MOU amongst ourselves before it came up to a vote, and I don't think we had a true chance to do that. And secondly, I don't concur, even though I appreciate Jeff's description, I don't concur that it addresses the issues that were of concern to the previous council, because I was sitting here and I know the issues. And so for those reasons, and I also think it's a little too cumbersome in terms of the amount of reporting that's required. So for those reasons, I will vote against it. I want Chesprocott to be successful. I want to continue on. As I said in an email to you, Peter, directly, I'd love to see our representatives, the board, come here and talk to us, tell us their plans, tell us their expectations and visions, so we can hear from them firsthand. I know some members of the council are talking to them directly. I'm not. Even when I talk with my cousin, I'm very careful not to mention this and have a personal conversation with him about this, and I'd like to hear this firsthand. So again, I'm going to vote against it, but just out of those reasons for those reasons that I mentioned.
Ms. Kramer?
Just for clarity, I had no private conversations with anybody on Prescott. I just attended a few of their board meetings on my own, through my own volition.
Any other comments? I'm going to make a couple comments before we vote on this. So I'm certainly comfortable. Mr. D'Onofrio, or Attorney D'Onofrio, crafted this memorandum back prior to our December 12th meeting. It was discussed by Mr. D'Onofrio at our December 12th meeting. In fact, Attorney D'Onofrio stated during the council meeting that if the town council is comfortable with the draft, it will be sent to Woolkit and Prospect. There was never any comments from council members. Another draft was sent on February 7th to the full council. It was sent again on March 13th to the full council. It was sent again on March 26th to the full council. So there has been more than enough time. And, oh, by the way, the Chesprocott MOU was also discussed on January 9th, even though there wasn't an additional draft, was discussed at the January 9th goals meeting that was held. I know that, in fairness, Mr. Walsh was not in attendance at that, nor was Mr. Mylone, and I know that Mr. Mylone did not rejoin us until February. So you were a little behind the curve with some of the drafts and some of the potential for discussion regarding this MOU. But personally, I'm comfortable, especially after hearing from Attorney D'Onofrio. I'm comfortable voting in favor of this. And with that, I will call for a vote. All those in favor? And all those opposed? Motion carries by a 7-2 vote, with Mr. Mylone and Mr. Veliver opposing. Thank you. That brings us to item number 9. Mr. Kimball, the town manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This will be relatively brief, as we covered a few of these, or at least one of these items earlier in the meeting. But if you'll look on the town manager's report in front of you, you'll see a couple items on paving, state DOT paving schedule. I know we've received a number of questions about the activity, obviously very visible up and down Route 10, with respect to prep work and all of the expected activity before paving occurs on Route 10 and also on Route 70 Waterbury Road. State DOT will be paving the entire length of Route 10, the remaining section from North Brooksville Road through the center of town and up to Cheshire Park at Stony Hill Road, as well as Route 70 Waterbury Road from the Waterbury line past and including the commuter lot past Blackie's down to Old Waterbury Road, Highview Terrace. All of that work is tentatively scheduled for mid to late August. The schedule we've received has August 21st. And would conclude, that's the beginning of milling, and the paving would conclude first or second week in September, weather dependent. We have made them aware of the Fall Festival, which of course occurs right at the tail end of that time frame, to make sure they're considerate of that activity in the center of town. And our local paving plan, you'll see the roads listed below. Those roads planned for milling and paving this round, which is taking place beginning this week. And all residents have been sent a letter if they're on an affected street. You see Sandstone Circle, Sable Court, Stony Hill Road, Stony Hill Circle, Highview Terrace, Rice Avenue, Dogwood Drive, and East Connector. And you'll see the segments there listed. And then Phase 2, which should be late May or early June, weather dependent, Hemlock Ridge Road, Bear Path, Francis Court, Edwards, Sheila Lane, Far Horizon, Village Drive, and Sperry Road. Flipping the page over, you'll see those roads planned for chip sealing and those that are denoted as a double chip seal application. So happy to answer any questions with those as we conclude. But also moving on, we have the street sweeping program ongoing, started a couple of weeks ago, and they're working their way through town. You'll see a little pretty simple map there from DPW showing the 4 quadrants that they do the street sweeping in. It wraps up usually by middle of June. And it works sort of counterclockwise, starting in the southwest corner of town. I won't read through the Neighborhood Assistance Act applications, but just a reminder that those are due June 3rd. And another reminder to check out our Projects Around Town page. We continue to update that with a lot of the great activity happening around town. I mentioned earlier the Bartlam Park turf availability starting tomorrow, so I won't read that again, although there's a lovely photo there. I will note, it's not written here, but the Cheshire Half Marathon is this Sunday. So please be aware and make plans around that activity Sunday morning. And before I get to the final upcoming council meetings, also just wanted to make sure you saw the economic development report. It's relatively brief, but it does have some good information, and I know you're often getting questions about the new tenants that are coming to the shops at Stonebridge Crossing, and a few of those are listed there in the economic development report if you didn't have a chance to read that. But very exciting news, a lot of great businesses coming to town. And again, concluding the report, upcoming council meetings, we have a number of budget workshops, some scheduled. We have 2 there held for budget adoption, April 29th or April 30th, depending on how things progress over the next few days. And that will conclude. Oh, an ordinance is listed. Where did I put it here? Oh, there we go. Very at the end, May 16th, 7 p.m., 2:07. Is Ordinance Review Committee. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Wolf.
I just have a question about street sweeping. I know that it's a state road. West Main Street has not been swept and is in just general disrepair for, it's bad. I've talked to someone at the DOT recently, and he basically said their access to street sweepers is poor. Is there anything we as a council, as a town, can light a fire under the DOT to at least come out and there are sections where there's just piles of asphalt on the side of the road. I just would love to be able to ride my bike on it safely.
Yeah, understand. I'll certainly put that to our Public Works folks and find out if that's something that we can either assist with or pressure and push them to take care of their road to the same standard that we do.
Mr. Veliber.
Thank you very much. I just have a question. Maybe other people have this question as well. But the last time the state paved the Route 10 heading north, can someone explain why the road sings when you drive on it? It makes a lot of noise as you're driving up and down Route 10.
You're crossing the middle line. That's
No. There's like a humming sound, and it's nice. Yeah. So it's like but wherever you drive on Route 10,
stay in the middle of the road.
I'm trying. But no matter where you drive, it makes a noise. And I was just curious. I'm hoping that the state does a better job paving the rest of Route 10, so that doesn't happen. But I was just curious if anybody knew it. Yeah, right. They need to change the tune. But usually the road when it's brand new is nice and smooth, and you don't hear anything. Not here. It's like a as you drive over it. So everyone, I assume we've all experienced that same thing. So I was just curious why that happens, if anyone knows why that happens. And obviously there's not much there. Obviously they're not going to go back and repave it, but I'm hoping that they would do a better job for the rest of Route 10, so we don't have to have that all the way up to on the other end of town.
When my husband complains of noises that he hears in the car, I tell him just his radio wasn't loud enough.
Mr. Jinks.
Sean, quick question on paving. The work on East Johnson, didn't that recently started, right?
Yeah, Merrick is here. He actually stuck around in case there are any paving questions, but he could give you a brief update on that. That's separate from milling and paving. That's a full road reconstruction project. But
that's
do you
why
want
it's
to give
not
us
on
the
the list.
timeline?
Yeah.
Yep.
Separate project under
Yeah.
capital.
Okay.
The contractor mobilized last week, and their intent is to actually start the work, I believe, next week.
Okay, good. This is like the third or fourth time I've told someone in the area that it's starting, and it's, so I didn't see it on the list. I'm like, what's happening now, But yeah.
We have to wait until after April 1st.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Sean, the only comment I'll make, and Ms. Kramer and I are appreciative that on your street sweeping map, you proved to us once again that District 4 is number 1. Which brings us to the monthly status reports are in your packets. The department status reports for police, fire, and Andrews for economic development are in your packets. Which brings us to chairman's report. I have a referral of administrative fee for delinquent motor vehicle tax bills to the Ordinance Review Committee for their review and recommendation, and I believe, Madam Clerk, I saw that you had a tentative date set up, so Excellent. So, good old ordinance review stays busy as it always has. For chairman's reports, I'll start to my left. Ms. Kramer?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Wolf?
Nothing to report.
Ms. Allard?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Jenks?
In case you're unaware, we're in the middle of budget season.
Huh,
Um,
shocking.
That's my report.
Ms. Pearson? Back to appointments, liaison reports. To my left again, Ms. Kramer.
No meeting in April, meeting again in May.
Mr. Wolf?
To report.
Ms. Allard?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Jenks? Ms. Pearson?
Just going to say that the field concerns were resolved, and that was just.
Yes. Congratulations to John Godlack for his yeoman efforts getting that dispute resolved quickly and perfectly. Mr. Walsh?
Just quickly on beautification, they are moving forward with their tree planting in the south end on Route 10. They are meeting with some businesses, and hopefully, they think in June is when they're going to start planting trees. So you'll be able to see some pretty looking trees and not those pear trees.
Don, I have a quick question. Are they taking up those trees, or are they replacing them first?
They're only going to take them up if they're diseased. They're going to prune them, but I've been told that they're only going to take them up if they're diseased. So if you know how to disease any of them. The other thing is on the Cheshire Housing Authority, they are in the process of replacing all their lamps, the street lamps in their facility over in Beachport. So with the help of the town, which it's a strange thing, the town owns them, but they lease them, and they're working with Eversource and the town to get all the lights replaced. They're doing a lot of work inside there between the apartments that they've renovated, the sidewalks they've added, and the sign, and they're really making it look like a really nice place to live for a lot of people. So.
Were there, Mr. Walsh, were there LEDs in there before? Are they switching?
They're switching to LEDs, I believe.
Perfect.
That's what they're doing, yeah.
Okay.
So.
Excellent. Mr. Velaber?
No report.
Mr. Malone? Appointments to boards and commissions. Mr. Wolf? Mr. Velaber? Good to go. Town attorney's report. Council communication, letters to the council. Does anybody have anything? Yes, Mr. Walsh.
I don't know if anybody else got this, but I got it addressed to me. My name is Chris Salato, and I am a resident of Boston Place, which is located very close to the new North End School. Adam Dripple, who also lives on Boston Place, mentioned that he spoke at the town council meeting last month about adding sidewalks on Marion to complement the new school. My wife and I would like to express support for the sidewalk proposal as we look to start a family here in Cheshire. We believe that the small addition of sidewalks on Marion paired with the new school will have very positive impact on the walkability of the community. Looking at new successful communities around the country, walkability has become a key ingredient in their success. Cheshire is poised to pair its comfortable small town feel with the modern updates that make new communities thrive with small yet impactful additions such as these sidewalks to connect the new school to the surrounding community. Thank you for your contributions as a member of the Cheshire Town Council. We hope you and the broader community agrees with the long-lasting benefits that come with sidewalks on Marion. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh, and thank you, Chris, for your correspondence. Nothing for miscellaneous.
Wait, I have a letter.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Kramer.
I just have a letter. This is a great place to bring it up. Hope all is well. I'm a 20-year-old resident living at 35 Sherwood Lane. Any idea as to when the town's next bulk trash pickup will happen? Thanks for any insight, as my wife and I was done accordingly. And I would love to respond, but in the time that I've lived here, we've had it twice. It's not something that we do every 2 years. It's something that we look into our budget and.
That's the bulky waste pickup, is that what it?
Bulk trash, when we go for our.
Yeah.
Bulk trash,
Yeah.
yes. Right.
So do we have any?
There is nothing in this fiscal budget that we're looking to do.
And we announced it when we made plans
Yes.
for it.
Yep. Anyone else? With that, we have items, contract negotiations for executive session. So, there wasn't,
Police.
Yeah, maybe. Okay.
So we do have executive session to include, Mr. Jaskat, are you staying? Mr. Jaskat will stay, Mrs. Talbot will stay, our Madam Clerk will stay. Yeah.
He's out.
Yeah.
He didn't know this was coming. He's out.
So can I have a motion to go in?
So moved.
And a second? All in favor? We are in executive session with no action to follow other than